Hello everyone and welcome to PreSonus Live. I am Justin Spence, and tell us who you are. Who are you?
I'm Wesley Smith. I'm a product manager here at PreSonus.
And what does a product manager do, Wesley?
I am the mini CEO of many, many products. That's what I do. I get to dream up cool products and then hand off an idea to engineering, and they have to figure out how to make it. It's a pretty cool job.
With sticks and duct tape and such.
That's exactly how they build everything.
Nails,
Nails, screws, mostly sticks and duct tape, though.
So we're focusing on our monitor line today, which is very vast now. It started off with a couple of products, and now there are many products.
That's a full line. We got you covered. Everything from your first pair of studio monitors to your latest pair of professional studio monitors.
Add-ons, etc.
Add-ons, yep.
Okay, so a couple things we need to mention before we dive into this. We have prizes to give away.
Ooh, prizes.
Which is always exciting, I guess, during a PreSonus Live when we give something away. Here's the catch. You have to be watching, I'm pretty sure, and you have to watch the whole thing because we're not going to announce anybody until the end. So you're going to need to stick around for that rather. Also, everyone who's signed in and is actually viewing now will be, I guess, emailed or telepathically sent the monitoring guide you put together, which is a buying guide, it's a setup guide, it's all kinds of stuff.
It's everything. It explains, we get into more gory detail about what we're going to talk about today, the benefits of different components, different materials, what you need to be looking for when you're shopping for a studio monitor, and then how to get the most out of your mixing environment, like how to make DIY diffusers, like these lovely boxes that you made. Fantastic. They smell fantastic, but if you don't have the mad bandsaw skills of Justin Spence here, you can use a book wall or something like that.
Absolutely taking orders.
It has different tips like that.
Before we dive into the details of the line, we're starting with Eris. I want to shoot to a video with John Bastianelli. He was so gracious to sit down with Andy and myself and talk to us a little bit about ideas behind the speaker line, the whole line. And John Bastianelli is EVP of Product Management, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Great. So let's check out John Bastianelli talking about our speaker line.
My name is John Bastianelli. I'm the EVP of Product Management over at PreSonus. I'm in charge of the Product Management Department. I have a group of product managers that are totally awesome. I love working with them. We have a great team. We're responsible for defining the products, and that entails talking to customers, mining data from the market, looking at trends, and managing the product life cycle from inception to end of life. I'm really excited about our studio monitor line because now we have a complete line from the Eris line, which is high quality budget speakers, all the way up to high-end Scepter line. As you all know, initially we came out with the Scepters and then the Eris, but now we filled out the line with the MTM speakers, the 44 and the 66, and the R65 and the R80s. How does one choose which monitor? That's kind of a complicated question because everyone's needs are different. Obviously, budget is probably the number one, especially with our target customers. The other part of it is, of course, space. How much space does one have? You know, most of our customers don't have the perfect room. They don't have the perfect acoustics. I mean, they may have some bass traps thrown up or makeshift egg cartons on the wall and things like that. But still, it's not perfect. So offering our customers some EQ settings on the back and also the documentation and explanation and support videos on how to basically set their speakers up in the not so perfect room is what we set out with the Eris line. What we found is that a lot of these types of people are growing, they're getting better at their craft. So our strategy with the studio monitors was to offer them great products that are more akin to higher end products, meaning that they're tuned flatter, they don't have that smiley face, that low frequency bump, high frequency bump, to give them really solid tools to make better mixes. An E44, for instance, is a wonderful speaker that'll give them extended bass, a wider image, kind of a microscope into more of the mid-range so they can tweak some of those things like vocals and guitars that sit there that may be difficult for them to place in the mix. I've always loved MTM speakers, but as everyone knows, MTM speakers the ones that are currently in the market are very expensive. I felt there is a real need for taking the MTM benefits and leveraging them down and making them available for everyone. We spec'd in very high-powered amplifiers compared to a lot of the other speakers and tune them very efficiently, and also tune them in a way that it will produce an accurate listening experience throughout the spectrum. All of our studio monitors have that strategy, from the E4.5s all the way up to the Scepters. Well, the reason why we chose the design philosophy for the R speakers, and specifically the AMT tweeter, I've always loved the sound of those. There are some great products in the market, but again, they're extremely expensive. So we set out to capture some of the ultra high frequencies that the AMT provides to the customer. But I should also say that we also set out to put very high powered amplifiers to support modern music such as electronic, hip hop, etc. One of the benefits of where we are right now as a company is that we have an in-house speaker expert, Hugh Sarvis from Works Audio. I enlisted and worked with him on the tuning of the R series speakers. He was involved in specifying the porting of the speaker, also the curve of the waveguide for the AMT tweeter. So it was great fun working with Hugh, and Hugh did a wonderful job. And it's only a start of some really great future products coming up the pike. The reason why we're offering the customers choices, meaning the choices of the baffle, the blue or the black, I've gotten feedback across the board from people to say, I love the blue baffle, and some people to say, no, I don't want the blue baffle. I don't want people to draw attention to the speakers. They have to be invisible. So we've given the customer both choices. It's probably one of the most enjoyable experiences that I've had in my entire years in this business, and I'm looking forward to the future and our new products that we're going to offer to you guys.
And we're back, and thank you for sticking around. So, Wes, we're going through a pretty, there's a lot more speakers than I remembered in the Eris line. And we're starting today with our entry level or our least expensive monitor, the Eris 4.5. Mm-hmm. Can you give me, I'm sure there's a lot of thought that went into this, and we can't cover every detail of what you guys were thinking back in the lab when you were dreaming up studio monitors. Mm-hmm. But give us some broad strokes about, one, who is the customer for a speaker like this? What is this speaker used for? I guess those are my main things that I'd like to cover. What do I use this for, and what makes it cool?
Well, just to back up a little bit, typically with affordable studio monitors, it's great because there's so many great affordable studio monitors on the market now. Unfortunately, a lot of them are kind of hyped in the high end and the low end,
right.
Or they have a really uneven mid-range because it's difficult to get that mid-range dialed in just right with rather inexpensive components.
They're trying to compensate.
They're trying to compensate. Yeah. So we had this dream of having affordable studio monitors
that
were flat, that gave you a really good accurate response.
Sure.
So even if your budget doesn't allow you to have something like the Scepters or something like that, you still get a good mixing experience, because if your studio monitors aren't accurate, you're going to your mix won't translate to other areas.
Okay.
So so the Eris E4.5s are the beginning of that, and these are really great. They're really compact. They have a 4.5-inch Kevlar woofer.
They smell good. Okay.
And a 1-inch silk dome tweeter.
So 4.5 and a 1-inch here. Okay.
And these are cool for if you're made on a really tight budget, or if you're mixing in a really small space.
Right.
They have a couple of things that the other Eris monitors don't have. Little headphone jack here. Okay. So if you're sharing an apartment and you want to rock out past midnight, you can pop in your headphones. Always do. Right. Or if you want to plug in your smartphone, your iPod, whatever, listen, or your iPad.
So straight into it, you don't have to
plug in an aux in with an 1/8-inch jack. Okay. Easy peasy.
Just like you would in your car.
Just like you would. And there's also a front panel volume control.
Okay.
Lets you dial that in. So it's really for a small mix space. Maybe you don't have a mixer. You're just going straight out from your computer or something like that.
Great, super great for a computer.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Let me ask you this. Mine seems to be missing things that yours seems to have.
Well,
tell me a little bit about that.
All of the other studio monitors we're going to be talking about today are biamped.
Okay.
That means they have 2 amplifiers inside them.
Each component does.
Each component, well, all the other monitors, they have one driving the low frequency driver and one driving the high frequency driver.
Okay.
The E4.5s have 2 amplifiers inside one of the speakers, and there's a 25 watt amplifiers, one to power this guy, and then you have a jumper to power this guy.
Just use some speaker
So
cable.
this doesn't have any electronics in it.
Okay. So it has the components, it's ported, it is a tuned box. However, everything is happening electric-wise in the one.
In the one speaker,
E45.
yes.
Okay.
And it has the same connection complement as our other Eris monitors, so you have RCA and quarter inch. You also have some tuning controls, and this is really important.
I think that's kind of one of the coolest features
Absolutely.
of something that's an inexpensive
And it's
entry-level
really
monitor.
unusual too, and because if you're mixing at home, most of the time you're not in your studio's not dedicated for studio work.
Your studio is your dining room.
It's your dining room,
Or
it's
your
your guest
bedroom,
bedroom,
yeah.
your den, whatever. And so maybe you have to set up your desk in a corner.
Sure.
Because that's the only space you have. It's not a great spot. So we have this acoustic space control, and that compensates for boundary-based boost, which happens when 2 surfaces meet, like in a corner, ceiling, floor. And all of our studio monitors have that.
That's fantastic. And there's cool little diagrams on here that show you what happens when you hit the switches.
That's right.
Which is good for me because I'm not a manual guy. I don't really read the manual.
And I write all the manuals.
I know, Wes.
takes me
I look,
hours.
I skim, I really like wholeheartedly skim the manuals. I'm like, oh, my buddy wrote this. That's really good. Good job. So that's cool. So that's E4.5, and now there's the line is pretty thick. So let's
move
pop
on.
these over here, and let's kind of transition to our E5 and our E8. Now you were saying E4.5 is called a 4.5 because it has a 4.5 inch low frequency driver. I'm assuming that kind of spans the line.
For the most part, yeah,
Okay.
that's true. So the E5s have a 5-inch Kevlar woofer, and the E8s have an 8-inch Kevlar woofer. E5s also have a 1-inch silk dome tweeter. E8s have a 1.25-inch silk dome tweeter.
Okay.
And that's the silk dome tweeter. It gives you a wider sweet spot,
Okay.
so you have a slightly wider stereo image. It also gives you a really smooth high end. It's not as brittle as, say, an aluminum tweeter would be, or something like that.
Okay.
And then the Kevlar woofer has a weave to it that helps to break up
It's got that blue
reflections.
weave.
The blue weave.
I think that's good. That means it's good, right?
And it helps to break up reflections to get
Okay.
a really coherent bass response, which is also nice.
And these, in typical Eris fashion, have tuning and a lot of connection options as well on the back of them.
And the bigger ones have an XLR connection as
Okay,
well.
so when you get to 5 and you get to E8, you'll have an XLR balance input, TRS balance, and then your RCA unbalanced
That's right.
input.
You also notice you have a 3-prong connection instead of a 2.
Okay, okay. And it's not one powering the other. They are
They're
independently
independently
powered.
powered,
They
yep.
have their own stuff.
So they're-
So it's a little different as far as power is concerned. For this is 2 different power
There's 2
supplies.
amplifiers in here.
Excuse me, yes.
There's a 35 watt powering the low frequency driver and a 25 watt powering the high frequency. And on this one,
Let me flip it around so
flip
when
it
you touch the
around.
component,
There
it's
we go,
actually
it's
powered.
there.
People understand what we're
good.
talking about.
So you have 75 watts powering this guy
Okay.
and 65 watts powering that guy.
And also, again, that's per box. It's
Per
not
box.
sharing like the 4.5 is unique in the entire monitor line as it is one box that powers the other.
That's also sold in pairs.
It
yeah.
is. It comes in a single box together with you. Okay, great. So tell me this. I know where our 4.5 fits. Well, where does a 5 and an 8? For me, I think it could be your main monitor, it could be your B or C monitors. It can be used. Obviously, you don't just have to buy all PreSonus monitors, although that would be totally great if you want to do that. We completely support that
And we
decision.
understand that.
However, you may already be invested in a pair and you need a bigger pair or you
Yep.
need a smaller pair. So I guess that would be a good place to start. But what was the idea when designing these products?
Same idea. We wanted to create an affordable studio monitor, had an even mid-range, and had a smooth bass response, smooth high-frequency response. Wasn't hyped, didn't have the smiley face,
Right.
consumer speaker. Because if your speaker has too much bass or too much high-end, your mix will have high-end and bass only in your studio. It won't have it anywhere else. So that was really our design goal. And if you look at the frequency response curves of these, you'll see that they're incredibly flat for for the price point, which is really great, and they really sound awesome. I mean, the 5s are just kind of like an upgrade for the 4.5s.
Right.
Really great for a small mixed space if you're doing like acoustic music. Maybe it's just you, singer, songwriter, or you like to work with a subwoofer. You'd rather have that in the mix.
I think they're great production monitors, and
Fantastic.
what I say with that is like when you're making music in the box, or our video guys, the entire video team uses Eris when they're cutting video together. I think it's really great for the professional video guy or the professional makes music in the box guy, and as an additional speaker or a bigger speaker if you have like a smaller monitor that you want to add something onto that system. So that's E5 and E8, and obviously as we get the larger low frequency driver, we're getting more low frequency response, reaching further down in the spectrum.
That's right.
So we also have brand new to this line, new to the entire speaker line, we have the MTMs, and this is the least elegant way that we can transition to this, but I'm going to move this stuff out of the way.
All right. Let's move
Over
this
here.
guy down here.
And then we'll move these bad boys onto these sweet, twisty, lazy Susans.
All right. Let's see.
As elegantly as I possibly can.
That's right. I'll set this one in the horizontal orientation.
Okay, so, and we are showing that. We are showing a vertical orientation and a horizontal orientation. First of all, before we even get into, hey, these can be oriented in 2 different ways, what are we looking at here? What is this?
These are the Eris MTM speakers. These are brand new. This is the E44 and this is the E66. And despite their names, this actually has 2 4.5-inch woofers.
Okay.
And this guy has 2 6.5-inch woofers.
You're getting half an inch on each speaker for no additional cost is what you're telling me.
That's exactly what I'm telling
That's
you.
fantastic.
But it's only to PreSonus customers.
Only
Those
to
are
PreSonus customers. Okay, I see what you did there. All right.
So MTM stands for mid-woofer, tweeter, mid-woofer.
Okay.
And this is a nested MTM design. That means the 2 woofers are kind of brought in a little closer.
Okay.
And the tweeter is raised up. In a traditional MTM, they're all in a row, straight on line, with their acoustic centers there. The problem with that is you can only orient them vertically. You can't orient them horizontally.
Okay.
So this gives you the flexibility to go either
So
way.
the traditional would be center. The woofer, mid woofers would be spaced a little further apart. You'd have your high frequency driver in the center, but you can't lay them down.
You can't without getting component interference.
Let me tell you what we have in our $1 million studio here at PreSonus. We have these, and I'll tell you why. They're cool, they sound awesome, and they're great. They're our B monitor. We have an A monitor as well, which is also PreSonus, no big deal. But it's the size of the monitor. A 4.5 wouldn't have done what we needed it to do, but this one having basically it's 2 4.5s and then the high frequency driver really does it, and they're out of the way of our large speakers.
Well, and the cool thing that is part of you touched on part of the cool thing about the MTM design is you can get a larger bass response and a smaller footprint because the 2 woofers cover the same frequency range, so they actually work in parallel, and they have it's called mutual coupling, so you get basically 6 dB more bass than you would normally out of the same design.
Science, kids. Science.
And then they actually work to contain the dispersion of the tweeter, so you get more of a point source sound.
A single point
source.
Right.
So you have a really wide sweet spot. So really great stereo imaging, spatial separation. So
because of the way they're placed in the box.
Because of the way that you place in the box.
And that helps us kind of like get everybody over to you at the proper amount of time.
That's
and
right.
it also widens
huge stereo image. So it's really great if you're doing any sort of work for film and you need that really big stereo image for sound design, or if you just happen to really like a wide stereo field.
And some folks just like MTMs better than the traditional two-way. I like a coax better than a traditional two-way. I mean, it's a lot about opinion.
Or if you're mixing in with an LCR system, this is a great center channel for an LCR.
Absolutely.
So there's quite a
upgrade
few
your
benefits.
home stereos now. Yeah, I mean, you could buy a bunch of these, and this is a pretty rad, studio monitor, and have a pretty banging 5.1 system at the house.
Or if you want to remixing all your stuff in 5.1,
Absolutely.
They said it was the wave of the future.
Now,
15
so
years
no way to tune these, right? Or there's
yes.
absolutely a way to tune these, which it looks better from your perspective because I've got mine sticking up here.
have all the PreSonus monitors. You have your acoustic space control. All the Eris monitors have high and mid frequency adjustments.
Okay.
Again, your studio might not be in the best location, or you
Sure.
might have a really good studio with some problems.
Let's go out on a limb and say most studios aren't perfectly acoustically
That's
sound.
right.
I mean, it costs a lot of money to get, to design a perfectly acoustically treated room. And it's great to have those sorts of tools on a monitor that's so inexpensive to be able to compensate for the anomalies you find in a bedroom or a dining room or even a good, studio. There are problems. It's problematic. And if I can flip a switch and make it less problematic, that just makes plenty of sense to me.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty exciting stuff. We have our 4.5, we have E5s, we have E8s, and then now we have the MTM monitors, which is our offering E44 and E66. Now, I didn't mention before, we have prizes. Did I say the prizes? I may have mentioned it. Let me mention it one more time. I'm not telling you who won yet, but we're doing a MTM. We're giving 1 or 2. Do they get mono or stereo?
I hope they get stereo.
We're going to give you
we should give
2.
you stereo.
We're also giving away a monitor station, so stay tuned. It looks like, let me hold it up and let me do this. Stop moving it around, let you guys take a look at it. It also smells really good. So before we move on to our next monitor line that we're going to talk to you about, we're going to throw another couple of videos at you that actually talk about Eris and then start transitioning into our Scepter line. So stay tuned. We're going to come back, give you a lot of details on Scepter right after this.
こんにちは、ヘビーグラインダーです。エリス E66 スピーカーを使った感想をお知らせします。従来のスピーカーと違ってツイーターを2つのミッドウーファーで挟んだ構造なので、縦に置くことも横に置くこともできます。どの方向から聞いても均一な音が得られるのがいいですね。スイートスポットが非常に広いですし、再生周波数の範囲も広くてサウンドが本当にクリアだし、低音へのリスポンスが驚くほど良いです。ですから長時間ぶっ続けで作業する時も非常に快適です。エリス E66 は私のおすすめするスピーカーの一つです。
I have my Scepters, my S8s, which have basically turned me into a mix engineer because of everything that I can hear. My ears are so much better. I'm just, and by the way, anything that comes out of those Scepters, it's the same on my headphones, it's the same in my car. They're so true, and they're very transparent.
I use the Scepters. I'm a PreSonus guy. I first started actually using the PreSonus channel strip, so when Teddy told me about Studio One, I was familiar with the company. I love the way that Studio One sounds through the Scepters. Before that had some Event 2020s, which I've had for the longest time because they bang. I like my speakers to be able to bang and you be able to abuse them without them breaking down. But in using the Scepters, the first thing I noticed was there was no, it's phase coherent. So if anybody's used NS10s, you got the tweeter and then you got your woofer. Well, sometimes the frequencies are hitting your ears at different times and it kind of plays an illusion on you. So you're not really sure what you're hearing. The thing I love about the Scepters is that everything is hitting me at the same time. And they're clear, they don't crackle. Just pure sound.
My personal studio's in Malibu, California. Love the vibe there, real chill, real laid back. What I have there is my Studio One, of course. Then I have my Scepters, which I use for multiple reasons. As an A&R, I have a lot of mixes to approve, and these are the speakers that I listen to when I know I got a good mix, I can hear it on these. And this is the tool as an A&R. Now, as a producer, here's the THX experience where you have stereo sub, where it's not mono, so you're getting both sides coming and it's so loud and it's so accurate. With these Scepters, I'm able to just have this workflow where it's endless. And I just thank PreSonus for that because it's actually you could tell that someone is thinking about the actual producer when they're doing this and when they're creating this, and it is tailored for us.
Hey guys, and welcome back. Okay, so check this out. We're going a little bit out of order as far as offerings in the monitor line
price
are
point.
concerned. Sure, price point. Because we wanted to save the latest release for last. So we're moving to our Scepter line, and I think you guys just saw the Scepter video, one of the Scepter videos that we have. Some of our artists gave some testimonial about that. So those have been out for a while. I think we had Eris and Scepters kind of came out sort of at the same time.
Right about around the
and
same
those were
time.
the two offerings. So Scepter is different. You can look at a Scepter monitor and see that it is not like a traditional.
You instantly know it's a Scepter as soon as
Right.
you see it. There's no hiding that.
Like so, and there's really, as far as I've seen in the price range, nothing like this
No,
monitor.
I mean it's there's not a lot of coax speakers out on the market
Sure.
anyway, especially coax studio monitors. It's kind of a little bit of a rarity. There were some older monitors that
Sure.
are kind of famous.
I remember those.
Yes, but there's some problems with coax speakers with the mid-range being a little, for lack of a better word, honky.
Right,
They kind of have
sure.
that honk, and
And
that's
I guess stacking one speaker on top of another speaker could be kind of
it
problematic.
can be tricky. It can be tricky.
With science and
with
all.
science and
okay.
all. So part
So
of the
how
problem.
did we combat this?
So what causes the honk is you can see here. I'll turn this to the
So
side.
give it a side profile.
You can see this is
here.
a horn loaded. This coax. So there's a horn.
I'm sure I'm not supposed to be doing
Please
this,
don't do
but I'm
that.
gonna do it anyway.
Inside a woofer, and the reflections off the horn can kind of bounce off the woofer and kind of
Sure.
create that kind of.
Alignment gets out, gets muddy, frequencies
Like-
get weirded out.
It just makes it a little honky, like
Sure.
that mid-range sound. So what we did is we put a huge DSP inside of it,
Okay.
and then we
It's
worked-
actually bigger than the box. The DSP.
yeah.
We had to shrink it down.
Shrink it down.
And then put, okay. That's right.
So, and then we worked with Dave Gunnis, who also worked on our Studio Live AI loudspeakers.
Sure, which are also coaxial
And
three-way.
he's the head engineer over at Fulcrum Acoustics.
Okay.
So he's a very famous engineer, and
He's built one or two speakers.
one or
before.
two speakers
He
in
knows
his
what he's
time,
doing.
and he has developed a type of a series of FIR filtering called temporal equalization, or
Okay.
TQ.
Let me know when my nose starts bleeding.
So all that means is there's some very fancy filters running, and what
On the DSP.
on the DSP, and their goal, and they've achieved it, is to delay the horn to the back plane of the woofer. So
Okay.
all that sound is coming right at you.
Okay.
So you lose that honk, and you get all the benefits. So basically, they work like your ear.
Okay.
They work just
More
like your ear.
like your ear would work, obviously. Well, that's interesting. If I took the computer out, no worky is what you're saying.
That's pretty much what I'm saying.
Okay, so you took a high frequency driver and a cool horn and you stuck it on top of a low frequency driver, and it's ported and tuned a certain way using amazing and fantastic DSP. Now, like our Eris line, let me ask you this: does it have cool stuff that I can do to? Oh, look at that! It has cool
absolutely
stuff you
does.
can do.
Yep. We don't have an RCA connection here, just balance connections.
Yeah,
But it is the
everybody's gonna
flagship
use
studio
an
monitor,
unbalanced
right?
cable to put on their
Don't do that.
awesome studio monitor.
And you still have your high pass filter, so it's very easy to add a subwoofer. You can do a little high frequency adjustment if you need to tone down or boost up the highs, and then you have of course, your acoustic space adjustment. Now the really cool thing about the Scepters that's very different and a little off-putting the first time you listen to them is they are incredibly three-dimensional.
Oh yeah.
And that's because all the sound is coming at you from a single source, so
Sure.
it's more like you're in an environment. So
I think it creates a mid-range that's kind of not able to be done when you have a high-frequency driver here. and
it
low
is
frequency
so
driver here.
smooth
It's
and
completely
so
different
accurate,
experience.
and it's a little off-putting because you're not used to hearing the mid-range that even in a studio monitor. So you think the mids are actually hyped, but they're not. It's
Sure.
very smooth. The other thing, in addition to the incredibly wide stereo image, even wider than the MTM speakers, which says a lot,
Okay.
you also get a three-dimensional depth,
Okay.
which is something that you don't get with a traditional point source source speaker. So that's called the Z plane. So if
Here you
you're
go again.
really into the art of mixing and you want to do the little bubbles and all of that, you can
Okay.
really do those with us.
Yeah, is my nose bleeding? Okay, so interesting to me is we've seen a lot of early adopters in the mastering area
yeah.
taking on the Scepter 8 specifically and using these as a B monitor to their gajillion-dollar mastering speakers. They're not replacing their gajillion-dollar mastering speakers. They're using them in addition to. And I think that's really interesting because they're so, look, engineers and mix engineers are pretty picky people. Just by nature, I believe that's how we are. But I feel like a mastering engineer is probably the most picky person. And I think if they can, just fall in love with this, I mean, anybody, this is a fantastic speaker. There's no doubt about it. And it's very interestingly designed. And it is different. The entire line, PreSonus speaker line is very different. I think it's cool that we have something this cool to be like the flagship speaker.
Absolutely. And
That
it's, the other cool thing about these, the only complaint I've ever heard about these is a friend of ours is an engineer, and he, well, of course, and we sent him a pair of Scepter 6s, and he was halfway through mixing a record, and so he started mixing on them, and his client heard the mixes he got with the Scepters versus the mixers he was doing on his other speakers, and he had to remix all the other songs. So that's the only complaint I heard. So
Well,
that's
it's
good.
just,
Yeah, better
that's kind
mixes.
of what you want. For your critical listening monitor, this is a fantastic monitor.
It really is. And it's probably beneficial to have a traditional two-way
Sure.
speaker to reference. So something like this with like an Eris speaker would be.
Again, a lot of
that's-
folks out there are not going to have coaxial speakers that they'll be
Right.
listening to your mix on. They're going to probably have a traditional two-way speaker that they're listening.
And because these pick up so many really ultra-fine details that you wouldn't normally hear, if it's something that you really like in the mix, you'll want to make sure that translates to a speaker that maybe doesn't have the characteristics.
And, obviously, we can't play this back for you. Even if we did, it would sound weird. But we definitely encourage everybody that's watching or that may be interested in any of the speakers that we're showing you today in our speaker line, go out and check them out. These exist in stores probably pretty close to you. And it's definitely worth a listen. And I guarantee, obviously, it's like, do we believe these people? They work for PreSonus. It's their job to hype this product. But really, it's something that you can go and take something you're familiar with, like you normally would when you were speaker shopping,
Yep.
And listen to it. And I guarantee you're going to hear something that you didn't hear before. Whether it's just a slight, subtle thing, or I've heard instruments in a song that I never heard before, like in some Michael Jackson stuff. I was like, I never heard that instrument before. I've definitely never heard it that predominant in the mix before. So it's really a cool thing to definitely check out. The technology is just nose bleeding, definitely. A lot of science
lot of
behind
science.
that, but the science really paid off.
Yeah.
It's a really cool product. Definitely check that out. Now, before we move into our series and talking a little bit about subwoofers and monitoring controlling, we're going to go to Mr. Smith Carlson, who came and paid us a visit, and Mr. John Fishback, one of the engineers who's actually using the Scepters in his mastering setup. So let's go check that out, and we'll be right back. We'll swap all this stuff out, and we'll see you when we get back into those videos.
Hey, I'm Smith Carlson. I'm an engineer, producer, and songwriter based out of Los Angeles. I got my career started at Chalice Recording Studios, where I was fortunate enough to work with artists like Kanye West, Dave Grohl, Whitney Houston, and spent the last 5 years working for Ryan Tedder as his personal engineer. And I came across the Scepters on Pensato's place, actually. And he was raving about them, and so I tried them, and I was just blown away. I had to have them. The clarity, it sounded so great, and I was excited to produce on them. They were flat but not boring, And it was nice, by the end of the day, they're not hyped, they're not overly hyped, so my ears don't get fatigued, so I can work for long hours, and I just can't believe the price of what they're at. I was really shocked by the clarity and how real, accurate they sound. I've been doing a lot of hip-hop projects lately, and they've been my go-to choice. They just have this great low end, but still it's able to be accurate, and I can take my mixes wherever I go, and it translates really well. I think the really great thing about it is you can really turn it up and they don't break apart. I think a lot of people are going to love that. I like to take them. I travel a lot for sessions, and I like to be very familiar with my speakers, and so I take them everywhere I go, and it's so nice to be able to travel, and I have the acoustic tuning function on the back of the monitors, so I can just cut frequencies or get it right for the room, which is just, it's a fantastic tool.
My name is John Fishback. I've been a recording engineer since 1969. I owned a piece of a studio called Crystal. I owned half of the studio with a guy who became my partner, Andrew Berliner, who was also the engineer for a lot of early Motown stuff, especially Jackson 5. I had met a whole bunch of other people, Stevie Wonder being one of them. I later went on to be his recording engineer, and I did that for a long time. And we went on to do a lot of hits. I mean, a lot of hits. So James Taylor, Carole King, War, Jackson Browne, REO Speedwagon, a lot of R&B hits. That was it. I decided I really liked it. I seemed to be pretty good at it, so that's what I did. And as I got older, that I thought, well, you know, I could learn to do mastering, and then you could do this stuff, and then you only have to be involved for maybe a couple of days. Even if it's not great, you'll hear a lot of interesting music, so I started doing that. PreSonus was doing a demonstration with NARIS, the Grammy people, Recording Academy, at Esplanade Studios in New Orleans. I have a mastering room there. You had taken down some other speakers that I had and put the Scepters up. And maybe in a snob-like fashion, I thought, this ought to be fun. And then you started to play music through them, and I thought, wow, that shouldn't be. And I thought they sounded really great. So I bought a pair. I've found that if they're done properly, I've never had any problem with the coaxial. It was all about that space. Oh, well, let's get the tweeter where the woofer is, and it all comes out at the same time. I think that was really the idea. And if done properly, I think they work brilliantly. So absolutely, the more DSP, to me, the better. When I'm recording, I need maybe a couple of speakers. I might have a main speaker and then a smaller speaker, and it allows me to make judgments about either the mix or what I need to do to fix what was brought to me. In mastering, it's a whole other deal. You're listening to something that somebody's labored over for a long time, and now you're going to make decisions to take a whole cohesive piece and put it all together so when you hand it to the client, it makes sense. So I have my big speakers, and then I've found that the Scepters help me with that, because it gives me another look at what I've been given. What I also like is that they are adjustable, so you have parameters that you can adjust. Because let's face it, we're in a room that has really nice acoustics, and somebody has thought about it. A lot of people don't have that option, but to be able to adjust for a room that's very bright, to be able to contour maybe the frequency response of the speaker down, and the bottom end, to be able to say, okay, well, I'm in a large room, hopefully this is going to fill it up, but I'm in a small room, now I'm being overpowered by the bass. Can I contour some of that bass away? That'll be really important. I think everybody who listens to monitors needs to find one, not that somebody is hyped, not that somebody says, oh, that's the one you have to have, but the one that makes sense for you, the one that sounds good to you, that you think you can work on and make sense of. Let's face it, if you do what I do, a lot of times you're going to work long hours. So something maybe that sounds fantastic for the first 10 minutes, by the end of your 8-hour session or 10 or 12-hour session has completely destroyed your ears. I really don't care how it's done. If it sounds great, it sounds great. You expect that kind of sound in frankly, a much more expensive speaker. The main thing is that you find a speaker that you can live with day in and day out, that you will learn to know.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. If you are just tuning in, we are talking about the PreSonus studio monitor line. We've covered Eris and we've covered the Scepters. Actually, before we switch over to the R series, I forgot to ask, in case anybody was wondering, what's the power rating for Scepter 6, Scepter 8?
Both the Scepters are powered by 90 watts a component, so
Okay.
180 watts total, 90 watts for the tweeter, 90 watts for the woofer.
Okay. Okay, so R series, these look different.
They
I think
look
we have a theme.
rad.
We have a theme going on. It's like, okay, Eris looks, okay, I've seen those before. It's like a blue low frequency driver. That's cool. I like that. And then we just like throw up this coax design. And it's like, what is going on here? And now we've got this blue speaker that has a not traditional high frequency driver. So tell us a little bit about the R series.
These are our brand new studio monitors. These are AMT studio monitors. AMT stands for Air Motion Transformer.
Okay.
And a lot of people shorthand them as ribbons.
Okay.
These are not the same as ribbon speakers. They are AMT tweeters. It's slightly different.
I had to Wikipedia that earlier.
Yeah,
so you
it
guys,
is really deep.
Feel free to do that.
If you want to go down the rabbit hole, it's make yourself a cup of coffee and settle in. No, it's not a new technology. It's been around for a while.
Okay.
So basically, there is a ribbon in here, a Kaplan ribbon, and it has a circuit embedded on it. And basically, it moves like the bellows of an accordion to port air.
Okay.
And so you actually have a 6.8 square inch AMT tweeter in here, so it moves a lot of air.
Wow, that's very
and
interesting.
then you also have the Kevlar woofer coupled with it. The cool thing about an AMT tweeter is you have a really wide sweet spot.
Okay.
Not as wide as an MTM or a coax, but it's still very wide.
Wider than most typical two-way.
Wider than like a silk dome or something like that. The other cool thing about an AMT tweeter, its ability to reproduce ultra high frequencies.
Okay.
Really, it's moving so fast because as soon as the current hits it, it's reproducing the sound. So for transient response, so any sort of acoustic instruments, if you want to hear the room, the air and the space in the room, the breath in a recording, you're going to get that more from an AMT speaker than you will from other things.
So again, a completely different sound to this monitor line, which I don't know if we've gotten to that video yet. We've played quite a bit of videos, and thanks for sticking around. But one of our artists specifically says, you know, it's important to find the speaker that fits you. An Eris might fit you, might not fit me. AMT might be better for me, or Scepter might be better for the next person. It's really about what it is that you're doing, what's the environment, and what is nice to you. What do you think you can mix on hour after hour after hour?
That's
what
right.
is the least fatiguing monitor as well. So. Very different high frequency driver, as we can all see. And then we have our low frequency driver, and it's a ported box as well. And I'm just going to go out on a limb.
This is 6.5 inches, 8 inches.
Oh, right, that's right. I forgot to mention that. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and these have tape on them because we use these here.
These are actually ES for engineering samples.
There are samples. No serial numbers. These are
nice little piece
one
of
a
tape,
kind.
a little label tape there.
Yeah,
so.
no big deal. That's custom, what we call that. So these have tuning, and it looks like, from what I'm seeing here, this has DSP in it as well.
That's right. It has the same DSP as our Scepter speakers in it. These were tuned by Hugh Sarvis, who is the head of Works Audio, which is our commercial loudspeaker division.
Right.
And Hugh knows a thing or two about
He's
designing
built one
speakers.
or a million speakers.
Millions
I'm not
of
entirely
speakers.
sure.
So I mean, if you can.
Yeah, down to from monitors, speaker monitors, and small stuff, all the way up to line arrays that you'd
That's
see
right.
in an arena.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so he knows stuff as well.
And so we have your acoustic tuning controls, again, high pass filters, so you can add a subwoofer, high frequency driver adjustment, and then you also have your acoustic space adjustment. These also give you XLR TRS or unbalanced. They sit right between the Eris and the Scepter line in price point, so give you some flexibility.
Something I wanted to mention about a little earlier was high pass filter. You have that on all of the speakers, correct? So this is a to taste thing, I feel, as well. You can totally put this on a scope and take a look at it and see how it's responding when you're changing that crossover, where it's cutting. Is it dipping too much? Are you getting too much of a bump in a certain frequency of the crossover point? You can totally do that, and I'm not going to tell you one way is right over the other, but let me tell you how Justin does it. Just listen to it. Do I like the way it sounds this way, or do I like the way it sounds like this? Can I mix on it like this for a long time? It really, to me, tailoring that high-pass filter, the crossover point where the sub takes over, is kind of an important thing, and it's a two taste. So the way one guy might do it over here might not be the exact same way, Wes might do it, or I might do it, or whoever. So that's definitely something you want to look at.
You want to spend some time on it, because if if your monitoring system has a lot of bass in it, you're going to think your mixes have all this wonderful, rich bass response, and then you put them into a car stereo, and they're going to be flat and no bass. So
nothing's happening.
Yep. So definitely want to smooth that out. Again, these are brand new,
I have something I wanted to ask. So when I buy a pair of R65s, which is a 6.5, or the R80s, which would be your 8-inch low frequency driver, and I open the box, there's extra materials in there.
There is.
What does this mean?
Well, we all love the PreSonus Blue, and we wanted to make a distinctive monitor. But some people were like, "Does it have to be blue? Because it's not going to really go with my studio vibe." So if you want your studio monitors to be all black, like a traditional studio monitors are, we have a black face plate, black plate.
What happened? I don't know what just happened. Okay.
Inside the box, and you can, with a little tool, it's a little Allen wrench, take these off, put on the black faceplate, you're all good.
More like in the background, not really sticking out. Now,
it's optional.
Ryan Roulard actually came up with a plan, and I don't know if this has been officially released, but I'd like to throw down the gauntlet here on PreSonus Live. One, you have extra plates. So if you choose a plate, then you have two extra sets that are going to do nothing, sit in the box in the attic, and just waste away. I would like to challenge anyone out there who can design the coolest faceplate. I don't know exactly what I'll give you, but it will be something cool and of value. So send it in, Instagram us some pictures, throw it up on our Facebook page, whatever. Put it out there, and let's do this. Do something interesting. I'd like to see some camouflage, some wood grain stuff going on, murals, like some Jackson Pollock stuff. Whatever you're into, design your faceplate for your R series, and we'll pick a winner here. People who are smarter and have a better artistic eye than I will do it, and then I will find something cool and worth money, and I will send it to you. So that's just a little
that's awesome,
just off the wall stuff right there.
Yeah.
So check this out. That's our series. We've gone through the speaker monitor series, Eris, Scepter, and the R series monitors. Now we need to talk about our subs and our monitoring, but before we do, or our monitoring control, before we do that, I'd like to go to another video with Mike White, and Mike's going to talk a little bit about some very interesting information about how to choose monitors, how he goes about it, how to set them up, stuff like that. And check that out. And when you come back, we'll talk a little bit about the subs and monitoring controls, and then we'll take some questions and we'll give away stuff. So stay tuned. Here's Mike White.
Hi, my name is Michael White, mix engineer, mastering engineer, and founder of the MPG Music Production School. About 30 years ago, I started working in professional studios. The first studio I worked at was a studio called Right Track Recording, and it was at that facility that I met Whitney Houston, probably the best client that I had throughout my career. I ended up being a chief engineer for about 6 or 7 of her albums over the next 15 years, and did countless other projects with her. Also, my experience at Right Track led to creating relationships, recording artists like Mick Jagger, recording David Byrne, David Bowie, and many other artists, including James Taylor. I eventually moved on to work at Electric Lady Studios, where I was a staff engineer there, and from there I developed my skills and learned a completely different way of making records, including doing some mixing work on some Jimi Hendrix tribute records with Eddie Kramer. So some really incredible experiences working with some of the top producers in the industry. And I get many requests from people who ask me what monitors to buy. I think quite often one of the bigger mistakes that people make is that they buy a monitor that is much bigger than the space, the acoustic space that they're using it in will allow. And people will focus more on having a full frequency response but you have to also focus on what is going to be the optimum listening volume for those speakers, and how much of that and the acoustics of your room is going to be affected in a negative way. So appropriately sizing the monitors is the biggest thing. The next thing, and this is so important, is that you have to listen to monitors. Everybody's ears are different, and they will hear precision and detail in a monitoring system in different ways. So there's no one setup or one system or one monitor that will work for everybody. A few weeks back, PreSonus sent me a new pair of monitors that they were releasing called the R80s. And I'm always skeptical of new monitors and claims, but I set them up and had a listen. I was actually, at that particular moment, I was working on a couple of mastering jobs and mixing jobs, and what I noticed immediately was the precision and the detail of the high frequency response. And what was most interesting to me, and it pissed me off, was that it actually exposed some high mid distortion that I wasn't hearing in my current monitoring system. And so when I started to reevaluate my mixes and started to listen to them through this system, I started to realize that I wanted to revisit a few things that maybe I didn't quite hone in as much as I would have liked. I actually think the monitors are really good for that. The precision of the high end and detail and the quality of the imaging. I was really very impressed by them. This is absolutely a monitor that I would recommend to students of my school, and in particular people who are looking to either upgrade their monitoring system, move beyond their headphone systems, and have something that they can sit down in their home studio and see and hear the depth and detail of what it is that they're working on.
Hey everybody, and welcome back. Again, if you're just tuning in and joining us here at PreSonus Live, I'm Justin again, and this is
Wesley Smith.
Wesley, that's right. And we are covering our speaker line,
our vast studio monitor line.
Vast line. We have Eris 45s, 5s, 8s, 44s, 66s. Then we have Scepter 6, Scepter 8, and R65 and R80. Mm-hmm. We've already covered all of this. We are going to take some questions in a second, which are about the things that we've already covered. But we have to talk a little bit about the low frequencies or sub frequencies and a little bit about monitoring control. Mm-hmm. So let's start with our sub offerings, which is this little fella. He's so cute. Number one.
He's adorable.
Totes adorbs, as the kids say. And then we have the T10. Let's talk a little bit about this bad boy. The ports on the front.
Ports on the front, speakers on the bottom. Do not take off the standoffs, because then your speaker's just going to be vibrating on the flow.
Let's pop that up. Let's see what's under the hood, so to speak. Okay, so that is a downward firing subwoofer.
That's correct.
Okay, and that's an 8-inch subwoofer?
That is an 8-inch subwoofer.
It is, I got to be honest, it's beefy. That was everything I had to hold that up like that.
There's 200 watts in here, so don't let its small size fool you.
So it's going to move some air, is what you're saying.
It's going to move some air. And you have all your connection management built in on the back. You have a variable low-pass filter, so you can dial in the crossover.
So it's not hard-coded, which is terrible.
It's just really terrible. You also have a high-pass filter on the top, so if your speakers don't have a high-pass filter, you can add that in for your outputs there.
Okay.
And you have a polarity invert, which is important in making sure they're in phase. And this is a really great companion for the E4.5s or the E5s, any sort of small speaker, or if you have the S6 and you just need a little more bass, a lot more bass. Right. Yeah. But really this is designed for smaller studio monitors, so really E5s, E4.5s, great little companion.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. If one wanted to bring the Thunder, I guess you would look
We do have the Thunder.
Temblor T10 would be where we would want to go.
The T10 is, it is bassy. It gives you lots and lots of bass, which is great. And it's a really cool, it's speakers on the front firing.
Okay.
Oops.
I'm in your way.
You're in my way.
There was an accident.
Oh,
Let me move this guy. There we go.
And it is pretty big, as you can
Okay.
see. And please don't fall down on me.
It's not dainty. This is not something you're going to carry to the grocery store. I don't know why you do that, but you cannot do that.
And this has a ton of great connection management built into it, in addition to being just a great sounding, very natural subwoofer. I have to say one thing about our Timberland subs. They are not flubby or woofy. They just basically naturally extend your the sub frequencies down from your full range speakers and give you a really natural low frequency
Subs
response.
are, I would say, very difficult to
They are.
get right. And I am kind of a snob about subs. And this is $399, am I correct?
I think so.
So for $400, there are 2, 3, 4 competitors in the market, and this one just kills it. Now, I know that I work in PreSonus, and they pay me to say stuff like that. But what I would say is definitely get out there and listen to this, and I guarantee you will agree with me. And if you don't, well, then we just can't be friends, and that's totally fine. But I'm telling you, I'm sure that you will like this. We like this so much. We have 2 of them in the studio here.
They're great. And the really cool thing, it has a few unique features that are different from the other studio subs out there. One, you have all your inputs here, so you can just go right out of your audio interface, mixer straight into here, out from here to your tops. Now, you'll notice we have this little sub bypass foot switch. It comes with a momentary foot switch.
Okay. That's in the box.
That's in the box with this.
Okay.
And when you click it, it actually turns off the subwoofer, and it just goes right out to the full range. Now you'll notice we have a high pass filter on or off, and when you bypass the bypass the subwoofer, you also bypass the high pass filter. Now this is different. Other subs have a bypass, but you're not bypassing that high pass filter.
Right, right.
So if you really just have this in a pair of tops, you don't need anything else.
Let me recap that for us slow folks. I'm talking about me. I'm not implying anyone else. What you're saying is when I bypass, I turn the sub off, and I'm also turning the high pass that I would have on my top speakers, so I get whatever they get, I get that.
That's right.
When I bypass it, which
So
is
it's
pretty
really-
good. I don't want them to be filtered if I'm
That's
turning
right.
the sub off.
So you really can go from a 2.1 system to a full range
Okay.
stereo system. Also have the variable low pass filter in here, so you can really dial in your crossover point. It's really critical. And of course you have the polarity invert. You also have a ground lift, which is
I've used this a gajillion times.
I mean, we live in Louisiana, not such great power down here
well, I
all
mean,
the time,
you know.
but with the hurricanes and all. So ground lift, very cool.
Right on. So we have T8 and T10. T10 can be, these aren't just for Eris.
No.
Which is a common misconception. A lot of people will say, okay, well, it kind of has that vibe, you know, but this can be used with any monitor.
Oh, yeah.
Scepter, R series, or any third-party monitor that you need a good subwoofer.
The T10 with the S6 or the R65
Sure.
is
Rockin'
rocking,
system.
rocking.
That's a technical scientific term.
That's right.
Rockin'. So let's talk a little bit about monitoring control. Let's take some questions and let's wrap this puppy
Let's wrap
up,
it
sister.
up. All right. So
All right.
here's the monitor station version 2. We had a version 1, a first generation. We also have the Central Station Plus, which is our rack-mounted version. And a monitoring system controller basically lets you switch between multiple outputs.
You need this if you have more than
Absolutely,
a set of monitors.
because the whole purpose of having multiple monitors is to A/B between them. This lets you connect multiple monitors, dial them in so they're all at the same output level, and then you can switch between them.
So when you're switching between, you're not getting a bump and getting some hype.
That's
you
right.
think you hear, but you're not
Not
really
really
hearing because
getting-
it's just louder or something. Now this has how many outputs to how many sets of monitors?
You can connect 3 sets of monitors,
Okay.
so either 2 full range systems and a subwoofer, or 3 full range systems if that's how you want to go.
Okay.
This also lets you switch between 3 different stereo sources.
Okay.
So if you want to reference your mix to a CD or a record or whatever, this also gives.
record?
It's a record, I know.
I don't know what that
My
means.
nephew actually asked me that the other
What is
day.
a record?
You have 4 headphone amplifiers,
Okay.
so you can use this to expand your monitoring system because it also has a talk
Meters,
back.
there's a big cool button. It's shiny right here. I think it goes this way and that. That's pretty interesting.
And then we also have, like we said, the rack mount version, which is the Central Station
Right.
Plus, which has a little desktop remote control with
So
a
that's
talk
about
back.
that big, okay.
Nice and small, and that is all passive circuitry. No
Okay.
op amps, no nothing nothing to color your sound.
That's a true PreSonus product right there. What
that-
you get in,
that-
what you put in is what you get out.
And
Yeah.
that's a really great product that's been rocking for us for a long time.
Okay.
So if you want something Ultra Pro, the Central Station Plus.
When you buy the
something-
Plus, you get the rack mount and you get the remote as
that's
well.
right.
And you can choose if you want a desktop version or if the rack is in your desk, you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to use the remote. Or you could throw the remote to the producer on the couch and
That's
let him
right.
use the talkback button if
Yeah.
you want.
Yep. So very flexible, and so for all of your studio monitoring, we've pretty much got you covered.
And guess what? We're actually giving a monitor station away.
That's right.
And we're giving a set of MTMs away. And now seems like a really good time to go ahead and announce who our winners are. And then we'll take these couple of questions and we're going to roll out, as they say. So our monitor station winner is Lars.Stein or Steen 1. And I'm not going to say the rest of your email address so people don't send you weird pictures. So you, Lars, you are the monitor station version 2 winner. That's the black guy right there that's got all the cool in-twos and goes out ofs and shiny buttons and multiple monitor settings and all that great stuff. This is a fantastic little product.
Yours will be brand new in the box.
Yes,
You
yours
don't
will
have
not
to
be the
this one.
scratched up, fingerprinted version that we've been using. And our MTM studio monitor winner is Peter Pan. Of course it is. Of course, Peter Pan. Congratulations, sir. Forever young, and you have monitor studio monitors now. So let's take a couple of quick questions and let's sign off. A question is which, spelled like witch on a broom. Which is the equivalent to the Atom AX7?
That would be the R series. So the AX7 has a 7-inch woofer. So
Okay.
the R series is right around that. So
Yeah,
you have
a little bit smaller
a little
and
bit
then a little
smaller,
bit
a little bit
bigger.
bigger.
Okay.
So the R series would be
And that's
there.
AMT as well, correct?
That's also AMT.
Okay,
That's correct.
so very, very similar in design. Ours is just blue and cooler. Someone commented
And a
that-
lot less expensive.
less expensive. That's kind of a big
Sounds
deal.
the same, less expensive. Actually,
Yeah.
sounds really good. Maybe
No
better.
big deal.
Not big.
NBD, as they say. Is there a specific room size limit recommended for E45? Your huge studio is not good for E45.
Yeah.
And I would say that if you were trying to run your PA, E45s would be a
Probably
terrible decision.
not the right decision for you. Yeah.
But I think, bedroom,
Bedroom.
dining room, the makeshift studio, or your computer speakers, it's perfect for that setup.
Your typical a house room size, so 10 to 15 feet
And then
by 10 to
again,
15
need to
feet.
fill some space?
Add that.
No big deal. Just grab this guy and throw that in the setup and you're rocking and rolling.
Ready to go.
Someone's asking about E8 plus sub, which is like the production killer. It's like if you're making the hardcore beats,
The beats.
E8s and a T10,
Oh my lord.
your neighbors are gonna hate you. So definitely a rockin' solution. We have that set up here. I think Andy uses E8s and T10s when
It
he's
is.
cutting video because that's necessary. So yeah, that's a killer combo. I would recommend that. I'm assuming you would also recommend
I would
that.
absolutely recommend that.
I paid her $5 to say that earlier.
Especially if you're doing any sort of dance music or EDM.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, if you need to bring the thunder, that's a great
that is
rockin'
the
setup.
one right there.
What kind of power on Eris? Okay, so we have.
My cheat sheet here.
Yeah, let's just roll through the line.
We'll roll through the whole line. So the E4.5s, two 25-watt amps, one for the powered version, one for the passive.
Okay.
The rest of the line is bi-amped. So the E5s, it's 45 watts on the low frequency,
Okay.
35 on the high frequency. E8, 75 watts on the low frequency, and 65 on the high frequency. The 44s, 50 watts that powers both of those 4.5-inch woofers, mid-woofers. And then 35 watts is for the Silk Dome tweeter. And then 80 watts on the 66 for both of the dual 6.5.
Okay.
And then 65 watts for the Silk Dome tweeter.
Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic information. Next question. Oh, I know many folks at PreSonus. What instruments does Wesley play?
I am a classically trained pianist, so I'm a nerdler around here. And then
I was about to say dork.
Dark. And just to really fly my super dork flag, last NAMM, I bought a resonator ukulele. If you have not seen this magical instrument, please go look up resonator
not
ukulele.
made by PreSonus, but
oh my
definitely check
lord,
it out.
it is the most fun I've ever had playing an instrument.
Are the R series monitors generally brighter than most monitors, and how does the low end hold up?
Well, the R-Series monitors have a massive Class D amplifier in them.
Okay.
They have 150 watts, 100 going to the low frequencies, 50 going to the tops.
Okay.
So the low end is very good. They're very natural
Okay.
sounding monitors. You have a Kevlar woofer. The weave, again, breaks up all the, any anomalies, and so you get a really coherent response.
Okay.
So I think it's kind of a misnomer that just because the high frequency sounds so good, they're going to be bright.
Sure.
It's not that they're bright. It's you're going to hear it's
More detailed. Would
more
be a
detail.
better,
It's going
I
to you're
guess,
going to
way
hear
put it.
air, and
Okay.
and air is not bright. It's
That's
not.
what-
That's
I like that.
That's really
Or
what
I
it
be
is.
like it.
Yeah, but the low end is definitely not lacking in those.
I need the
monitors.
air and the breath, if you will. Oh, someone just made a comment. It says Scepters are much better than their cost. So I'm assuming that means, you have X amount of dollars and you're getting way more bang for your buck. And I obviously would agree with that.
agree with that.
Look at PreSonus. But for sure, I think Scepter is priced at, I have no idea what Scepters cost. I think they're like 12 and 15 or something like that.
Something like that.
For a pair of monitors. And you're getting like a $5,000 monitor, you know. And like I said, a lot of mastering engineers, which use the most expensive studio monitors you can buy, are adopting these monitors in their setups, and this means something to me, and it should mean something to people who are in the market to buy studio monitors. We announced our winners. We got one more. Which would be equivalent to Focal's twin B6s? I guess MTM. The E66.
The E66s would be
as far as design is
as far as
concerned.
design wise, not price wise, but yeah,
Completely
it's
different,
Completely. I mean, and that says a lot because I think the Focals are like I want to say $19.99 a piece,
Okay.
something like that. So
Like $2,000 a piece.
something
is
like
what
that.
you're
Yeah,
Okay.
they're very
That
expensive.
seems high.
Yeah.
And are they traditional? So they wouldn't be able to be oriented.
They're
into
traditional
different-
MTM. They're
Okay.
not nested MTM.
So they're just stand them up.
That's right.
Which is cool. That's totally
No,
rad.
they're great, and they're great sounding studio monitors. But if you're looking for MTMs and maybe you don't have that kind of budget,
Sure.
really check out the Eris MTMs because they sound really. I think all of us were just amazed.
Yeah,
That we pulled
absolutely.
off such a great sounding speaker for the
I'm
cost
always
of
the
it.
first guy at PreSonus is like, whatever,
Yes.
dude, whatever. We're coming out with a software, whatever. And then I was like, oh, it's like the only thing I've ever used for like the last couple of years. And it was like the fastest growing DAW in the world. And the MTMs, I was like, whatever. And it's the only studio monitor I've adopted besides our main studio monitor. And so I don't know what I'm talking about. Typically when when a product manager is like, hey, we're doing this, I'm like, whatever. And then it typically turns out to be fantastic. I want to say typically is like 99% of the time they're right and I am wrong. And that'll be the last time I ever say that. So check it out.
Take in
Don't
this moment.
forget Eris, an entire line of Eris from 4.5s all the way up to E66s, and our R series, which is brand new, is AMT design, and then the coax designed Scepters. Definitely get it out to a dealer near you and check them out, or buy them. Just go buy them, just like on a whim, just because Justin and Wesley said, and try them out in your space and love them. I'm sure that you will. I'd love to thank everybody. I thank you, Wesley, for being on PreSonus Live, and thanks for tuning into PreSonus Live. If you have any further questions, hit us up at education@presonus.com. And I think that's it for us. I'm ready to be done. Are you ready to be done?
I need a glass of water.
Me too. Thanks, everybody, and
All
we'll
right.
see you next time.
Thanks.